in today's video lesson we'll be going over structs. So the first thing that I need to do is create a boilerplate, and I will explain structs as we create them. So IOStream, I need the string library for what we're going to do, and I want to use the namespace std, and I need to create my main function. I want to use system pause so that I can delay, so I can have time to see my code running. Otherwise, it's just going to skip it. And then I'm going to return 0. Okay. So first things first, we have our declarations. And I'm going to create a struct. So I'm going to use the example of a student. So student, and then this. And automatically a semicolon should appear at the bottom after you create the curly brace, but if it doesn't, just keep in mind that you are going to need a curly brace afterward. So a struct is kind of like a class. It's a more informal way of creating one. It's on a lesser scale. So typically you would use a struct if you're not going to have like functions attributed to your object, but if you don't need to use if you don't need to add functions, then a struct would be appropriate. So we're going to create member variables to this struct. So we're going to assign properties to the struct. String first name. So a student has a first name. A student has a last name. A student has a birth month. A student has a birthday. And a student has a birth year. I don't know why I couldn't spell that. And a student has a GPA. Okay, so all of these items go together, and that's why we're using a struct. So it's a way of abstracting our data, but because all these items go together, we wanted to organize it as a struct. So this is a way of organizing your code and keeping like things together. Additionally, if you wanted to create more than one student, you don't have to continuously create new variables. You will have to assign values, but you won't have to, first name 1, first name 2, first name 3, etc. So it's also a good way it's a good practice. Oh, my antivirus. Let me go ahead and close that out. Hello, where's my, oh, okay, well. So the first thing I want to do is, well, the second thing, because I already created the struct, but the second thing I want to do is to create a student object. So I'm going to create a student. So I'm going to type in the name of the struct. So in this case, it's student. And I'm going to create student 1. And I'm going to create another one, student 2. All right. Looks pretty good. So now I have two objects that are of type student. And a student has a first name, a last name, a month, a day, a year, and a GPA. So I'm going to show you what that looks like. So first of all, get user input. We're going to get the user input. We're going to also have an output. So I'll put this at the bottom. And if I don't capitalize that, it's going to drive me insane. So, okay. We want to output to the user. We want to get this information from the user. So I'm going to say, what is your first name? And this should have a question mark. I think it's good practice to do your spellings correctly even when you're doing little like projects like this, because it's better to be in a proper habit of spelling things right and using correct punctuation. It's more professional looking. So if you can help it, just understand that that's the reason why I go back and change these things so often. It's because I want to make sure that the way I practice the way you practice is going to be the way that you execute. So just keep that in mind. Anyway, that's my little ramble there. Um, let's see. And I need a semicolon here. And what am I going to input? What am I going to see in? I'm going to see in student one dot, I use the dot operator, and as you can see, I get a small menu of the member variables as a scroll down item, and in this case, I want to access first name. So we're going to see in the first name, and we want to know what this looks like. So I'm just going to go ahead and run the code so we can see what this looks like first. We're going to create more code, but let's just, well, it's compiling, so gotta wait a second. Okay, so it says, what is your first name? Let's say our first name is Sally, and I press enter. Okay, so then at that point, we should have the name Sally stored into the member variable first name. We're going to get a last name. What is your last name? And this has a semicolon, and we're going to see in student one dot last name. Okay, and that, again, that's how we access it. We use the dot operator to access the properties of the student object. So whatever object you create, just keep that in mind. Squirrel that away in your brain that you need to use the dot operator to access properties. And you know, you're always going to have to come back to video lessons and remember how you did them before, and that's okay. That's part of programming. I don't want you guys to think, oh, I have to understand this all the first time. No, you don't. In fact, I even have to Google how to do stuff all the time, and that's regular. That's normal. So if you're feeling bad about that, don't. Um, because this is how we learn, and that repetition, you will eventually learn it. So you don't need to learn everything the first time. You can watch the video multiple times, you can Google other ways to do it. Whatever you want to do, just don't feel bad if you don't get it immediately. And I'm only saying that because I used to feel that way myself. So we'll say, what is your birth month? And we'll see in student one dot month, oh, not comma, month, see out, what is your birthday? See in student one dot day. So we're just trying to get this information from the user, and we're storing it into an object. We're storing it as member variables into an object. And then finally, we're going to ask, what is your birth year? Oh, well, we're also going to ask for a GPA, aren't we? So not finally. Student one dot year. And then finally, the dreaded, what is your GPA? Some of you guys have really good GPAs, but I can understand that this question can bring about a lot of stress. Okay, CN student one dot GPA. All right, so now we have a way to access all of the information. Oh, it looks like I'm getting an error. This is the wrong way, isn't it? That's better. Okay. So now we want to create our output, and what do we want to output? We want to output the information that we see in earlier. So in the output, we're going to say cout hello, and then we want student first name, student one dot first name. So this is how you access that member variable. You use the dot operator and you attribute it to the student object of your choice. So in this case, it's student 1, even though we made a student 2. We didn't do anything with that. Put a space here. Student 1 dot last name and period, 1 period. Okay. And we're going to see out some birthday info. Your birthday info is, and we're going to say student 1 dot month, and then a dash, and then a student 1 dot day, and then another dash, oops, not an underscore, and then a student 1 dot year, and then we spell it right, and we end L. Okay, so this is going to display our birthday information. Finally, we're going to see out your GPA is student 1 dot GPA, period. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and run this code so you can see how it works. Takes a minute. All right, so we're going to say our first name is Sally. Our last name is Jones. Our birth month is July. Our birthday is 23. And our birth year is 2001. The GPA of this student will be 3.38. And there we go. Hello, Sally Jones. Your birthday info is 7/23/2001. GPA is 3.38. I'll press any key to continue. Notice how I put 07 and it's only showing the 7. That's pretty important. So if you want to see the 0, you're going to have to format it to do that. But we don't need that. This is sufficient the way it is. So this is how to create structs. This is why to create structs. What? More pop-ups. This is why to create structs, and you're going to be seeing these more. In later lessons, you're going to learn about classes, which is a more involved way to abstract your data. But this is very informal. It's fun to do, and you can go ahead and practice by making different struct objects. So, we had a student in this example. Maybe you want to make a struct of animals, and animals have a sound they make, they have a pattern, they have a number of legs, or whatever. You can do anything that you want as long as you're practicing. Okay, so that's structs. Thank you so much for listening, and have a wonderful day.